Hey guys, tonight we begin with the grim, dangerous, and not-so-glamorous world of medieval assassins. Those shadowy figures who crept through castle halls and darkened alleys to change history with a blade and a whisper. While Hollywood makes them look cool, the truth is being a medieval assassin seriously sucked. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Let's be clear. No one in medieval times woke up and said, "You know what? I'd like to stab a nobleman in the throat for 12 silver coins and the honor of hiding in a barrel for 3 days." Becoming an assassin wasn't a career path. It was more like the last stop on the life went horribly wrong train. Most medieval assassins weren't mysterious loners trained in mountaintop temples. They were desperate peasants, disgraced soldiers, ex-thieves with decent aim, or people so far off society's radar they could kill a man and still not be noticed in the census. If you were well off, you didn't become an assassin. You hired one. If you had a title, land, or even a goat to your name, you were in management. But if you just escaped debtor's prison and ended up there because the world chewed you up and spat you out wearing a hood and holding a rusty dagger, you weren't the hero. You weren't even the villain. You were the footnote that made everyone nervous and probably didn't live to enjoy the coin. Let's burst the first myth wide open. Medieval assassins didn't train under candlelight in some hidden monastery with wise mentors and inspirational flute music in the background. There was no montage, no teacher, no pep talk. If you did get trained, it offered 0 graduation ceremonies, bruises, bloodstains, and the creeping realization that you were very much on your own. Let's talk about why you became an assassin in the first place. Coin. Cold, heavy, jangly, deliciously spendable coin. The promise of it is what got you into this. But the reality? You got paid in lies. When someone hires an assassin, they don't want a long-term relationship. They want a one-time service, no paperwork, and ideally no witnesses, including you. You learn to sharpen or hide beneath a tattered cloak without clanking. If you were lucky, and I mean found a gold coin in a dead man's shoe lucky, you had a good dagger. Not ornate, not curved like a dragon's tooth, just sharp. Right, hopefully rust-free, and ideally one that didn't smell like the last guy you stabbed with it. Poison? It existed, sure, but it wasn't as glamorous as a slow drip into a wine goblet. Most medieval poisons were unpredictable, made from plants, minerals, or toad guts. Some worked, some didn't. Second, there were walls. Castles didn't have front porches. They had gatehouses, murder holes, and moats full of things that bite. If you didn't fall into the water half, you still had to worry about arrow slits and boiling oil. Yes, boiling oil. Your job description included maybe getting flambéed for peeking. Third, there were the servants and staff, the cooks, scribes, and stable boys. One wrong look from you, and they'd be whispering to the guard captain faster than you could say, "I'm here to fix the cheesecloth." And forget masks. There were no Guy Fawkes options. Most face coverings just made you look like a leper, which was great for avoiding conversation but terrible for entering parties. If anyone asked who you were, you had to think fast. "I'm Brother Tobias. I take care of silent prayer and rooftop maintenance." Even assuming you made it past the guards, noble households weren't full of idiots. Servants noticed unfamiliar faces, especially ones that fumbled chamber pots and couldn't find the nearest sewer grate. Even fellow criminals kept their distance. Thieves and smugglers were sociable. You were that guy who makes people disappear. They feared you, or worse, saw you as a walking liability. No one wanted to share stew with someone whose occupation could attract a mob with torches. And don't expect sympathy. You couldn't tell anyone how hard it was to sleep after silently strangling a corrupt bishop. If you talked about your job, people assumed you were either lying or confessing. Either way, you'd die quickly before anyone found out who hired you. Failure also meant shame, the silent, humiliating kind. You didn't just fail to kill, you failed to be invisible, to be perfect. And for assassins, perfection was survival. Anything less might as well paint a target on your back and start practicing your final word speech. It didn't matter how many jobs you'd done before. No one cared that you succeeded 12 times. Because in this profession, you're only as good as your last kill. And if you messed that up, you were starting the whole game over in a new city under a new name with even more people looking for you this time. So yes, you made the kill. Now run like hell. If being a medieval assassin wasn't already miserable enough, poor, hunted, and sleeping in places that smelled like goat, you also had to deal with the wonderfully creative paranoia of the people around you. Because in the Middle Ages, assassins weren't just feared, they were considered cursed. To the average peasant, you weren't just dangerous, you were doomed, a weapon of elegance. A quiet kill, no mess, no screaming, no steel on bone, just a sip, a stagger, a sigh, and done. That's the theory. In practice, poisoning someone in the Middle Ages was like trying to win a bar fight with herbal tea and a bad attitude. First off, poisons weren't reliable. You didn't have access to purified cyanide or a neat little pill labeled fast-acting doom. You had plants, mushrooms, minerals, maybe the occasional toad. You had to gather, grind, and pray they swallowed it before they finished their ale. You might have pulled off the most legendary hit of the century, and still ended up as a mysterious death in the official record. In fact, that was the point. Your client didn't want a story. They wanted plausible deniability. The fewer people who knew who did it, the safer they were, and the less likely they were to end up poisoned by their own assassin. So, your name was buried the moment the job was done. If you even used a real one, you didn't sign your work. Someone else came after you to clean up, to tie off the contract with something sharper than ink. There were even cases where clients double-booked, hiring one assassin to do the job and another to kill the first one immediately after. No refunds, just reduced risk. And if you dared try to blackmail a client, threaten to expose them, that was bold and also your final mistake. As powerful people in the Middle Ages didn't negotiate with assassins, they crushed them. If your client had a shadow army, you were already dead. You just hadn't heard the door creak open yet. And then there's what the job did to you. It did something to your brain. Every knock on the door made you flinch. Every stranger on the road might recognize you. You stopped dreaming because dreaming was dangerous. You couldn't love, you couldn't relax, you couldn't laugh too loud. You lived like a ghost pretending to be a man. The truth was there was no endgame for a medieval assassin. Just a slow, cold fade into obscurity. Always moving, always watching until one day you slipped into the dark, and no one noticed. And maybe no one even remembered you were there in the first place.